everyone, welcome to Whole Artist Mastery. I'm Marianne Mitchell. We today are going to continue talking about making friends with your new studio space and how you set it up so that you feel like the space has become your place. So in the last video we talked about how you position things, the things that you need in the studio to make it really work for you. And today we're going to talk about some things that you can actually make that are practical, that work for what you've chosen to put in the space. So what do I mean by that? Well, I believe whether you're an acrylic or oil painter, that the best palette to paint on is glass. And so what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you how to make your own glass palette. So this is the surface that I have to work on with a glass palette. And so I'm going to build a palette that comes in from the edges just a bit so that I have a little space on the outside of the palette, but the palette itself basically covers most of the surface of the table. The first thing I need to do is measure my surface. So lengthwise, it is 22 3/4, and width is 19 3/4 essentially. So let's call it 20 by 23. So I'm going to have a piece of glass cut, like I said, that's going to fit on top of this and have some border around the edge so that it covers most of the surface. The first thing we need to do is clean the glass surface with paper towel and glass cleaner, just to get as much dust off as possible. And you want to clean both sides. So I'm going to turn this over and clean this side. Now, if I painted on this piece of glass on top of this wood surface, my eye would be very distracted by the pattern of the grain of the wood and the splicing of the wood pieces together. And the colors underneath the glass are varied, which would very much affect how I see the color that I'm mixing. So I need to put something underneath the glass. I like to have white underneath the glass. Some people like to have a mid-tone gray. So what I put underneath the glass is a piece of foam core, which I've cut to match the exact size of the glass. I'm just going to make sure there's no little pieces of lint underneath. And I see that this glass is still just a little bit too wet. So I'm going to get rid of that. And now I'm going to place this on top of the foam core. And now I have a white piece of glass that makes a palette. The next step is to tape the foam core and the glass together on the edges so that you're sandwiching them. The best tape to do this with is Pro Gaff tape or gaffer tape, white tape. You always want to use white. So pull your glass and your foam core slightly off the edge and open your tape. And I would say about 1/4 inch in from the edge. Try to lay it down as straight as possible. Sometimes I can get it totally straight, and other times that's more difficult. And have it go off the edge a bit, maybe like 1/4 inch off the edge. And then take the sides like this and have them go around the edge and tape underneath like that. Then you want to take, sort of like wrapping a present, take the two corners and pull them in like this. And now you have these 45-degree angles at the edge, and you pull this down and tightly wrap it around so that the tape is tightly wrapped along the edge, like that. So we're going to continue on with the next edge and open up the tape so that it's about like that. And cut it. Try to maneuver the tape so that it doesn't bunch up. That's difficult to do at times. Okay, so this is a little too far in. I'm going to make it more like that. And I'll wrap it around the edge and then fold it in underneath and wrap it around along the long edge like that. So now I am ready to paint with my brand new palette. It sits right on top of my surface. So the next thing I'm going to show you is how to make your own paint silt catcher. So what is paint silt? Well, when you have your brushes full of paint and you drop them in your turp, or in this case I'm using Turpenoid Natural, the paint in your brush sinks to the bottom of your solution, whatever you're soaking them in. And it gets very murky and muddy, and it's like silt. And so if you have something in the bottom of your jar or your can that catches the drips of your old paint, your brushes are much easier to clean. So you can spend, I don't know, several bucks to go out and buy something that's not custom made, or you can custom make your own if you enjoy making your own thing and you want to save a few bucks and use things that you already have. So this really speaks to the whole repurposing thing. So here I have a can of canned diced tomatoes, which we're going to use in some very yummy stew. And I also have a can of tuna fish, that the tuna fish is out of the can, as well as the tomatoes are out of the can, fully cleaned and washed. And I also have an old screen door here. So I'm going to use the old screening from the screen door, put it on top of the tuna fish can, which I've already started to do, and use a staple gun to secure the screening on top of the can. And then once it's finished, we'll drop it in the can, and I'm good to go in terms of having the paint silt be caught in this can, and ultimately much easier for me to clean my brushes. This is an old trick I learned in art school, and I used to do it all the time, and I'm excited to show you how to do this. So I've already started to cut into the screen, and so I'm going to this is a regular pair of kitchen scissors, and I'm going to finish cutting up here like this. It's cutting very easily. You don't need a wire cutters to do this. And what you want, the size that you want for doing this is actually a square. I actually cut a rectangle, so I'm going to eyeball it and make it like a square here. And this is about the size I will need for a tuna fish can. It's about 5 inches square. The next step is to put your screening on top of your tuna fish can, and I've already started to do that. You take your piece of screening and you position it on top and kind of push it down so that it has a little indentation in it. Then you take your staple gun and you staple the sides like this. I have one side left. I'm going to put the can upright on the tabletop, position the staple gun, use both hands, push down, and there we go. It's my last staple. In order to be able to fit it in the can, I have to trim the edges here, trim off the corners. So I'm going to follow the circle around like this. Make sure there's enough left so that the staple doesn't fall out like that one's about to. And now I'm going to have to just push this a little bit and drop the can in. When you're all finished and this is ready to go, you want to take your Turpenoid Natural or whatever solvent you're using to clean your brushes and pour it in the can so that it's above the paint silt catcher that you've made. And then you stick your brush in and have it sit in the turp while the paint that's in the brush falls into the paint silt catcher that you've created. So if you're interested in repurposing materials that you have around your house to make a paint silt catcher, what you need is either a tuna fish can or a cat food can, maybe even a dog food can, and your leftover food cans and some screening that you may have either from an old screen door or lying around in your box of tools, and a staple gun. Then you can make your own paint silt catcher. Going to the hardware store is an easy thing to do. You can get a piece of glass for your glass palette, have them cut it to your custom size to your tabletop surface. Get some foam core that's at least a 1/4 inch thick in its thickness from an art supply or arts and crafts store somewhere in your neighborhood, and tape that you can also get at a hardware store. Make sure it's white, and tape those together. You've got a custom-made, wonderful glass palette that you can work on. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I invite you to like below and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Whole Artist Mastery. And I also invite you to go to my website where I have some brand new pre-recorded packaged workshops for you to learn more about color, visual grammar, and of course, oil pastels into abstraction. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.